Hello, hello. Welcome to Spindle TV. How are you all doing tonight? Hopefully you're doing well. It's good to see you again. It's been a while. Uh, been up north at our digital woodcarver home office doing open house and traveling around and kind of getting things done. And now we're back and making some projects. Hey, did you know that I wrote a book? I did. It's on Amazon. Check it out sometime. All right. So the tonight's class is going to be pretty straightforward. What I'm going to do tonight is I'm going to show you how to build a layered CNC project. Okay. From the design stage, we're going to walk through working with the vectors, creating the stacked pieces and things. Now, I'm going to be upfront with you. This is not a 20-minute project for you, for me, for anyone. There's some real design work that we got to do. There's going to be some node editing and setting up different layers and things. So a project, depending on its complexity and everything, could take you as the designer a few hours to kind of sort out and stuff. But that being said, the reward is worth it, you know, at the end results and everything. So what we're going to do tonight is I'm going to walk you through the process, how to think through the layers. Okay. We're going to talk about how to trim and node edit our vectors and things to build the layers properly. And then hopefully by the end of it, we'll have something that you know, represents a stacked project, right? So what should happen by the end of today, and we're not going to be together very long, but what should happen is by the end of today, you should, or the end of this, not the end of today, you should understand exactly how to take the flat image and kind of think of it in layers or stacks and things, and dimensional CNC projects and stuff. So the key is to stop, you know, thinking of it as like we're tracing an image and stuff. Really, we're actually taking an image and trying to cut it apart, if you will, to make it a dimensional project. So that's going to be pretty cool. All right. With that being said, I hope everybody's doing well. I hope you're doing all right. And I hope you like tonight's class. All right. Give me just a quick second and I'll Mary Beth on the fireplace. Mary Beth, yes. On the fireplace is my wallet if you want to go over and try that again. If not, don't worry about it. All right. So now, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to switch over to the Vectric software. Stand by. Let me see here. And where's my little screen share? There we go. Share an entire screen. Awesome. Hope everybody's doing well tonight. All right, all right. Now let's get this up front and personal here. Okay, so before we start, and let me put myself big. I want to put myself big for a minute, and let's switch places. You go there. Okay. Before we start, I want to talk about stacked designs, right? There's a lot of different types of stacked designs, and I'm going to show you some examples of some very cool stacked designs. Now, the one that we're going to be doing is basically kind of creating layers like a scene where one thing is in front of another. But the other type of stacked designs are where we use stacked layers of material, different colors, whether they be stained differently or painted differently or something, right? They could be even just different species too, stacked together to create a really cool kind of almost three-dimensional design. And there's some really cool ones out there. So I'm going to show you a couple of examples of stacked designs different than what we're doing tonight, just to show you all of the, you know, not all, but a lot of the possibilities that are out there when people are talking about stacked projects and things. So with that being said, the first one, we're going to visit a young lady's Facebook page on Facebook, and we are going to check out her work. This is Sweetie Pie Designs. Now, I don't know Sweetie Pie at all, but her channel comes across my feed all the time, and her craftsmanship is amazing. Very, very well. And with her projects, they are stacked layers of, it could be plastic, it could be wood, it could be acrylics, it could be all kinds of different things. And when they are, you know, assembled together, they could be all the same material. But then when she adds the coloring touches to it, you end up with the ultimate, you know, finished design on. And that's a way of stacking material to create some really cool stuff. So whatever it may be. So Sweetie Pie, if you ever watch any of my channel or anything like that, awesome work. I love when your stuff comes across my feed. And she does some amazing stuff. Okay, so that is an example of a stack design. So there's all kinds of cool stuff on her channel, Sweetie Pie Designs on Facebook. If you're ever on Facebook, go over, check it out, and then tell her that you heard about her from me. All right, so that being said, now let's talk about two other artists that we're going to be showcasing in today's class. Well, channels, should I say, and these are on Etsy. So the first channel is Fancy Layers SVG. Fancy Layers SVG has some cool stuff. You're going to see one of their projects and everything. And then the Digital Designs from A. Love this channel. And they make some pretty cool stuff when it comes to stack designs. And you're going to see an example tonight. I'm going to show you that. But on the Digital Designs from A, there's all kinds of very cool, fun little projects of stacked designs where multiple layers are stacked together to create kind of a three-dimensional design. And his or their, I think it's a group more so, we'll just say A's Designs, because it's Digital Designs from A, has some awesome projects of these stacked layer designs where these layers are separated for you. And so if you're into this type of work and you're like, oh, I just can't take the time to do it, you know, to make the design myself, there is channels like this on Etsy that are right there for you to just do some amazing things. And the same applies for Fancy Layers. And Fancy Layers SVG, this particular project was a pretty nice one and all, but this one we're going to showcase tonight as well. But their channel also has some amazing stacked layer designs. I'm not kidding you. Cool stuff. Vectric work is already done. A lot of it, they promote it for laser and all, but absolutely on the CNC, it can be done for sure. So those two, I really wanted to showcase those channels and everything. Now, when we're talking about, you know, stacked wood projects on Etsy, there are so many channels doing this kind of stuff. And there are, if you're into, I want to make some cool stuff, but I just don't have the time to do it myself, there are resources out there that have some pretty cool things going on and everything when it comes to these stacked wood projects and all. So we're kind of working projects in a sense, kind of like this, where we have, you know, layer on top of layer, giving that three-dimensional look. And here's a channel here that, specializes in those type of projects, has lots of different examples. And this is Z Stencil. And they make some really cool stuff as well. And then the last example I want to show you is, this is another great example. And this is from BK Cut. And this is another great example of a stacked design, that layered design we're going to kind of be talking about today, where it gives that three-dimensional effect and everything when you're looking at a project and stuff. And also lots and lots. And again, this is BK Cut, really great good prices on their files and stuff like that. So, you know, give them a shout out or give them a checkout sometimes like that. All right, everybody. So there are lots and lots of examples. I just wanted to let you know that because, you know, when we're going through this process and stuff, you're going to see it's not something that you're going to knock out, like I said at the beginning of this, in 10 or 20 minutes. I mean, it's going to take some time to kind of separate things and figure out what's what. Visually, you've got to be a little bit creative to know kind of what you're seeing and what your end game is and all that stuff. But hopefully, I give you some key points tonight, and hopefully, it enables you to step outside your wheelhouse or think outside the box. I don't know how you want to put it, but hopefully it allows you to step out of your comfort zone and just give it a try. Whether it succeeds or fails, you know, just keep trying, right? If it fails, keep trying. If it succeeds, wonderful, right? That kind of thing. So, and not every graphic is suitable for this type of project, but lots and lots of them are. Okay. And the one thing I do want to really stress, one thing I really want to stress, and I want to give me just a second because I really kind of want to make sure I hit this point very well. Give me just a minute because this is important. Oh, give me just a moment. This is important. Control F. Let me see here. Okay. Give me 1 second. I was on a flow. I was on a good flow, but this is an important, this next point that I'm trying to make is important. And it's referring to AI, artificial intelligence, okay? And it's important that we now in this day and age with AI being out there and you know, people you know, turning to it or using it to create projects and all, and let me tell you something, if you're not leveraging AI, you're missing out on a great opportunity and all. But let's talk about what AI can do for you and what it can't do for you when it comes to a situation like these projects, okay? And let me make sure y'all are still, that I didn't close the channel. Yes, I'm still here. Hello, how's everybody doing? Sorry about that. Let's get back to what I was saying. So let's say if I asked the question or what have you, you know, can AI separate and design the layers automatically for me, right, type of thing? And the answer is kind of, but not in the way that you're thinking, right? But it's not in a it's not reliable enough to be used for production. Okay, so what AI does well for you is it'll generate a very clean line art illustration. Okay, there's let me preface this real quick because those of you who ever want to take any of my paid classes or what have you, there are 4 main types of illustrations, and I teach this in those classes. I'm not going to elaborate too much because I'd love to earn your money. But there are 4 main types of illustrations that we work with online. There's engraving illustrations, vintage illustrations, woodcut illustrations, and line art illustrations. And line art illustrations is kind of what we're doing here. We're taking line art and we're basically turning it, or we're going to trim and we're going to create vectors and we're going to make copies of it and we're going to build it into layers to stack. And so what AI does do well for you, it builds and generates, you know, a strong base layer for you, a graphic basically. It can create clean silhouettes. It can do good composition on, like the mountain scenes and the deer and all that wonderful stuff. It can balance the spacing in the line art to kind of, help with that illusion, or, the layout, if you will. And it can save you, a ton of design time, right? But the AI tends to naturally kind of group things together. And because of that, when it draws the vectors and stuff, things like the background, the mountains, the midtones, the trees, the front, foreground, the animals and stuff, they align well, but they're, some of the vectors aren't completed. They're not finished drawn or anything, or they might be open vectors or stuff. And so it looks good in concept, but for what we're doing in the stack design, it's incomplete. And we have to complete it. We have to complete it with node editing, whatever the case may be. And so the what it doesn't do well, and this is important, is it doesn't understand structural integrity. Strong areas, like let's say, for instance, our deer tonight, the deer tonight and everything, it doesn't understand weak areas, like in the antlers and stuff, and fragileness and everything. So it doesn't know when branches are too thin or too thick. It doesn't, about floating elements, it doesn't know anything about the floating elements and all that stuff. And it has weak connection points because, like I said, some of the vectors it leaves open, right? So one of the things that we want to, understand is that while we can use AI to help generate the graphic, the initial graphic or the initial concept, you have to put in the work to create the ultimately the finished design and everything. And that whether because AI doesn't think in layers. We're working in layers tonight, right? Layers is going to be very important to us. So also sometimes AI can over detail things, and we're going to be cleaning those up and removing what we don't need and all that stuff. It can sometimes do too many small elements that don't belong, too many nodes, and sometimes it can introduce noise if we're not careful, depending on what type of line art or what type of art we're asking for, things like that. So AI can help you create the artwork, but it does not replace the decision making. You're the decision maker. You decide what's the background. You decide what's the midground. You decide what's the foreground. You are the operator. Okay, now that's all I had to say about that. I just wanted to, because AI, we're all leaning heavily towards AI nowadays. Some of us, most of us are, and everything. It's a wonderful tool, but it's has certain limitations that we still have to be the operator. We still have to be the designer. Okay, that being said, let's maximize this back up. Let's talk about the design at first and everything, and the concept and everything. When we got to think beyond tracing images, right? And we got to think about building dimension. Okay, the stack design and building dimension and all. And what we are looking at here, if we look closely at things, is we have mountains, this mountain scene in the background, but there's mountains in front of mountains. We have trees that kind of represent the midtones, if you will, or the mid layers and all. We have our deer, which is kind of the focal point, more front, and then we have our kind of our front stuff. So when we are looking at this, and you can see there's a couple of open vectors right there where things just don't join or they overlap and stuff like that, and we got to kind of work on that, right? And also when we're looking at a graphic like this, what we're trying to do is, and sorry, excuse my deer's eyes there, but what we're trying to do is we're trying to separate the design from our frame, our foreground, our mid-ground, the mid-mountains or whatever, the mountain range and the deer silhouette and all of that stuff. And we want to create it in a way that they stack and it also gives 3-dimension, but there's also some kind of support behind it, right? And we got to think about layers. And this is now layers is going to be where all the important stuff happens. Now, when I open up my layer window here, you're going to see lots of layers and all, but we're focusing on the bottom, the class layers, which are down here at the bottom. All of these are other art layers of examples that I'm going to show you up above here. We'll talk about that. But if we look here, starting at frame, we'll have a frame layer. We're going to have our backboard or back panel layer. We're going to have a mountain range in this situation. In this particular one, we're going to have a mid-range mountains, kind of the ones that are in front of the back mountain range. We'll have the trees in the front mountain range. There's going to be a little hill and stuff and all. The deer, we're going to have foreground rocks, and then we're going to have the front hills, right, that are kind of like where the deer is standing and stuff like that. So in this situation, not counting the frame and the back panel, because that's kind of, we'll keep that aside, but we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 layers, right, and everything. And so on a project like this, it's very important that we talk about, okay, how thick should our layers be and stuff like that. Now, ideally, your layers, you would probably be around 1/4 inch for each layer. And on a 6-layer stack like that, you're about 1.5 inches into it, right? So a four-layer stack, you're 1 inch thick already, right? 5 is 1 inch and then 1.25 inches, right? Kind of thing. So, but ideally, generally, you're working with about 1/4 inch thick material. Now, there's all kinds of materials out there. There are 1/4 inch, solid wood panels out there available for sale. There's 1/4 inch plywood panels. There's 1/4 inch. If you wanted to do something like this in plastics and acrylics or what have you, there's 1/4 inch sheeting. There's all kinds of stuff. If we went too thick, 3/8, 1/2 inch, what have you, then we'd end up with a very heavy, very thick kind of box type project, which could look very cool, right? And things like that. But it could also be a little bit much, right? So, 0.25, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little less, depending on what it is, will, be kind of the range you're working in. Whether you make those panels yourselves, whether you're resawing material, gluing up panels and all that, or you're using, the same type of wood. And in this case, if we look, carefully, we have our similar type woods here, but there are different, species in this image, but there's also different stains. The wood is stained because a project, if I'm trying to use walnut, maple, cherry, babinga, whatever, if I'm trying to use all these different materials to represent all these different colors, it could get expensive as well too, right? So just like you saw with Sweet Pine Designs, on Facebook and on her layers and all, it was all the same material in that one particular, project graph and all. It's the way that it was, the each layer was painted or stained or whatever the case may be that really made the difference in the art, and everything. And so we as artists, and we can think of ourselves as artists, but as artists and operators and all, we are going to look at what's going to do we use a different species of wood? Do we just use a different color stain? Do we use a color paint, a whitewash of some sort, or a dark wash, whatever you want to call it, but some kind of toner and things like that to bring out the highlights? Those are the things. That's the creative part of these projects and things. Now, also, let's look a little closer in here and I'll notice that there's some chisel work here. And when I say chisel, I don't mean a physical chisel, but I mean these mountains are chiseled. They're not just flat and everything. So when we were going back and looking at the when we were back looking at those Etsy channels and stuff like that, and that military one, all of the layers and everything, they were fairly flat. There was not anything sculpted, if you will, to create that. But Here, there's some sculpting in the mountains to give it dimension, right? There's some sculpting in the mountains to give it dimension, and there's not really a lot of sculpting in the foreground. There's stain. There's stain that gives, you know, a little bit of a different tone and everything from our natural wood. This is the same wood right here. It's just one is stained darker than that. Taped off, razor knife cut, and stained, and then do your best to, you know, try not to, you know, to avoid bleed to the best you can. It's hard, really hard, because it's the same wood. So there is a, you know, don't be too heavy on your stain stuff. You peel the tape off, and you got a kind of a little clean area, that kind of thing. And then if we look at our trees, there's no real sculpting on the trees. They're fairly flat as well too, but there are some areas that, you know, could be sanded, you know, to give it a little bit of shape if one wanted to. The deer is flat, the rocks are flat, but then on our outside piece, we have some sanding here just to give a little bit of dimension on the outside and things like that, right? So we are going to be actively involved with this project throughout. And it's not all going to happen at the CNC. We're going to use the CNC to help us cut out the parts. Heck, some people may have laser attachments that they attach to their CNC. Some people may have lasers that they prefer to use to cut out the parts, whatever the case may be, whatever approach it is. On a CNC, I will say that I would recommend, if you do not have one in your arsenal of tools, I have no affiliation with Speetool whatsoever. S-P-E-T-O-O-L. No affiliation with them whatsoever, but they make a dang good tool. Really good tool. Great tool. On Amazon, very low price, but a great, great tool. And I would recommend going out and getting a 16th inch end mill, 1/4 inch shank, 16th inch end mill. Get yourself an upcut and a down cut, right? Have that in your arsenal, because when we're cutting out these 1/4 inch little panels or what have you, and we're trying to get into tight areas and stuff like the antlers and all that, having an 1/8 inch end mill and having a 1/4 inch end mill isn't helping us right now, right? We want to kind of fret saw this if we could, you know, kind of thing, and everything. And so we're not using a scroll saw, you know, we're using a CNC. So we need a scroll saw size blade, right? In this sense. And, you know, so a 16th inch end mill, man, if you don't have one in your arsenal of tools, you're missing out. Get one. I wish I had an affiliate link to give you. I could make a mint. No, I'm just kidding. But Speetool 16th inch end mill, right? Upcut, downcut, you know, for when you're working with plywood materials and things like that. So the aside from the cutout, the raw cutout and stuff, there's going to be some cool, you know, this chisel work here. This is, you know, you can sand, you can use a little Dremel, you can do whatever you have in your arsenal of tools to kind of give it a little bit of shape and everything. You could also, now I'm going to show you a way that you could also do it if you had a spire and making a model and a 3D model and creating this, you know, kind of a sculpted look and everything. It kind of extends the runtime of the project a little bit, and it takes it beyond what I want to teach you tonight. But I'm just going to show you how that could be achieved as well in model form and everything. If you didn't have, you know, sandpaper to sand or you know, a way to sculpt anything, or you know, just all you're doing is kind of creating some, you're breaking off the edges, creating some little bit of shape and everything to it, whatever it may be. It could be some chisel work, could be a little bit of sanding, could be a little bit of both. All right. Now, that being said, layers is going to be our best friend. Now, this image, and let's start here with the tracing of the image, right? And when we trace an image in the Vectric software, it draws lines around the dark areas. So it's going to draw 2 lines to represent this one line in the mountain right here, right? There's going to be 2 lines, an inside and an outside. And that's not what we need. You know, when we're creating this and stuff. So we're using the tracing to get us started with the vectors, but then we've got to go in and do some node editing and some, you know, offsets and things like that to create what we actually need. And so if we take an image like this and we go into the trace bitmap tool, And I'll convert it to a black and white. I'll turn the fading off. I've got it at 75 here. There's all kinds of different things that we could do depending on what we want, but I'm going to go to 75. That's my cutoff, my go-to. That's my preference. I like, between 50 and 75 working in there. I'm going to go with the default corner fit. The noise filter is going to stay right where it's at because this is a high resolution image. And I'm going to click preview, apply, and close. And then we're going to come in here and we'll just move the graphic out of the way, right? And we're left with the tracing. Now on the tracing, like I said, it draws two lines. Well, where we need to be is either somewhere in the middle or on the outside or something. We got to make that decision. What? Yes, Kimberly Wentz, it is almost marquetry 100% in a sense. Yes. Yeah, sure, for sure. When you're doing the sculpting and all that stuff to, take these square cut pieces and give them, dimension and things and all. But, here we have this traced vector, which is fine for some things, but not always, because we have some open vectors and it traced that line there, it closed off the vector in the tracing, but it's not what we need, And so if I ungroup this, you for ungroup, thanks so much. If I ungroup this and we look at this vector here, like let's pretend that this would be the foreground mountain area, right? That vector there. All right. So I didn't have to do a whole lot with that, but actually I do, because that's not the whole thing. There's more that's got to be added to this, right? And everything. So one, I want this vector to go all the way to the outside edge of the frame and blah, blah, blah. So there's more to do it. So what we do is we get this initial trace here. Okay. So I have this initial trace. Then from that initial trace, I got to start thinking layer wise, and here's how I'm going to thinking. Okay. So we're going to have our frame, right? The frame. Now the sky is going to be the backboard, right? There's nothing really in the sky. There's no clouds or anything like that. It's just the sky. So it's going to be that's going to be the most back thing. So that's most likely going to be the solid backboard of our object. So our sky area that, and everything. Then we're going to have the upper or most furthest back mountain range, right? In this situation, that's going to be these upper mountains here. Well, right down here, this lower mountain range right here that goes into the trees, that's going to be another layer that kind of gets in front to give it to the mountains some dimension, right? So they're not just all flat. Those lower mountains are kind of like the mountain ranges coming towards us, right? Forward and everything. So the upper mountain range is going to be a layer, the foreground mountain range, and then the trees, they're kind of connected to this front hill, if you will, this front mountain area right here, but that's actually, it'll get milled down, so it's not going to be even with the trees. And let me show you what I mean by that'll get milled down. Look here, the trees, this is that area right there, but there it's milled down so that the trees look like they're, on top. Okay. So it's kind of pocketed down, all that stuff to, that's one solid piece of wood, but it's kind of pocketed down to give it that dimension and all. Or we could separate the trees from that area and then the trees go on top of it, kind of thing. Or it could be connected together, whatever the case may be. It depends on what it is, right? And so, we have to start thinking about our layers. Now we're not going to get it right off the bat. And we're not going to be, it's going to take some time to, really think about and plan the course of action. But I do know if I were just kind of roughing it, we have the frame, the background, the upper mountain range, or the back mountain range, the mid mountain range, the front mountain range, and trees. So we'll call that as one. The deer, the rocks and kind of the rocks that are around the deer, and then that front area and all. So that's 8 different, layers in a sense. Now, we're not really going to be counting the frame and the back panel and all. So we have 6 layers what we're working with here, but there's still 8 things that we're going to be creating. So we're going to take this item here, hold down our control key, and we're going to drag out copies, right? And in this case, as you can see over here, we'll talk about those vectors over there in a minute, but, start dragging out copies of this same thing. What this allows me to do is it allows me to take, the parts that I need from each one without only having one copy, and then I start trimming and node editing, and it's like, oh, shoot, where's my other? I need that vector. I need that vector for this layer, that vector for that layer, blah, 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 blah. I make the copies that I need, and I start cutting it up and keeping what I want out of that particular layer I'm working on, get rid of what I don't. Move on to the next one. Cut what I need from that layer, get rid of what I don't need, boom. And eventually we'll have it all. So we want to separate our designs into the different areas, the different layers. And what we will eventually end up with when we start to put these on different layers, and let's go ahead and turn this stuff off for a minute because you and I have got to do some work on some of these items. But let me go over here to layers over here so that box isn't in our way right there. But we have our frame, right? Our frame. Okay. We have our back panel. Now the back panel is going to sit kind of inside of a little rabbit on the back of the frame, right? So it's kind of offset, from that frame. The back panel is this square here. So that's our back panel. It's also our sky, right? That flat back area. We have our mountain range. Okay. We have our mid-mountain range. We have our trees, and it could be kind of a front mountain range in trees. We have our deer. We have our foreground rocks. And then we have our foreground, right? Now, these layers from the deer, trees, foreground, those aren't done yet. We got to work on those right now. Those aren't finished yet. They're nowhere near close being ready for cutting out the parts and all that stuff. But the mid-mountain range and the back mountain range are, as well as the back panel on the frame. Now, what I want you to notice is on both of these, I'll turn off this one first, but I want you to notice, if we look at the original image, the lines kind of, that represent that mountain range and everything, well, they're kind of cut here. And really, we're kind of working on this line is our line, right? Not these two, but the one in the middle is our line. And so I'm going to choose that the top line being my outline and everything here, but I need to kind of connect it to my back panel, if you will. And so when we're creating this, if I turn off the frame for a minute, the back panel is the one item that gets copied, the one vector that gets copied to all the layers, the back panel. It gets copied to all the layers because when we extend a line to the back panel, we end up trimming it away, and that vector ends up extending out. So if I were to move this off to the side, we end up creating that's our mountain range vector right there. But now with that vector, there's also kind of like the main flat panel that, kind of encompasses the top range of the mountain. It here is that layer. And this is the layer we would actually work with where we would take our little Dremel or our little what have you, and we would start kind of sculpting, you know, these edges and all. And how do we know kind of roughly what edges to sculpt? One, our reference image, but also these lines kind of represent, you know, the areas that we might be kind of shaving down to create little peaks and valleys and all that stuff. So you're really kind of limited by your imagination. But these are the two vectors here, and they both, you know, they both align with each other. If I can grab it in the right area and align it, they both align with each other. And they also, the bottom part of this aligns with the frame. So that back panel, right? So it aligns with that back panel. So that vector, which is the back panel, gets trimmed to each of the other vectors to kind of create a continuous panel. This way, what happens is when we're stacking these stacks, that back panel, the next panel goes on it and it has whatever cutouts it is. And then the next panel goes on and there's no air gaps in between. You know, we're stacking out. So that way, you know, we don't have fragile, thick pieces. We have these panels that we're kind of working with that it's built into. It'll make sense as we get into this in just a minute when we start trimming some of the vectors. Now, I want to take a second. I want to pause on this because this is going to be our main project tonight, but I do want to showcase those two channels, you know, Layer Designs by A and Layer, oh Lord have mercy, and Stack Designs by A and Layer Designs SVG. Those two channels, the two projects that they had in their channels and all, I bought each one. It's like, you know, $2. It was like $2, and one was $2.96, and I believe one was like $1 something or what have you. But this Stack Design, and what you get when you are working with these type of projects and all, when they send you the projects and all, you get the different layers broken up in the project. And so if I turn them on really quickly, let's see here. Let me turn everything off. Here, let's do it over here. Turn everything off. And then we'll do the, where is she at? Import. Let's go to, hold on, I just wanted to show these off and really quickly. Patriotic sign. So in the sunflowers, when she gives you, or they give you the AI file complete, the JPEG, the PDF, and the SVG, and then they have the separate vectors that you can import and everything. And when you import those in and stuff, you get the vectors that are already created for like your front layer. You get the next one, which would be, wait for it to come in. You get the kind of foreground. So this one has the stars and stuff. And when they stack, they start creating, you know, they start creating the design, right? And so each of those individual layers that they give you in those files, when you import them in, number 3, don't scale or size them until you get them all together. Okay, when you buy them from the individuals and all, this one is the land of the free part. So drag it up snap it right into place. Let me zoom in. I missed that one by a long shot. It'll turn blue, kind of a blue when you hit the mark. And one more. Let's bring it in. Might as well bring in the last one. The last one's just a circle. This is the whole design right there. And the last one is the circle that the whole thing goes into. And that one, it's a tight fit. You know, they got this as a tight fit, but it kind of goes like that. And that's what that looks like, right? And so each of these you would be on their own layer, okay? When, you know, whether you color them, paint them, what have you, but when you cut each of these projects out, you cut each of these layers out and everything, they come together to create whatever your color scheme might be. But, you know, that's a pretty cool design. And what it is you're exposing the layer behind it. So the white layer is one behind it. Then when you cut out the other layer that's on top, that's the red, it exposes some of that white and everything. And then, you know, the layer behind that was all the blue stuff, right? So you got red, white, and blue. And then when you cut these layers out, when you stack them, you know, all the white can be seen through the red, all the blue can be seen through the red and the white, that kind of thing. And so that's one example. And then on the layered design or stack designs by A, same thing. You get these multiple layers, and if I were to turn everything off, and turn on all of those, you would have your main background outline, your foreground parts that get cut out, that then basically all those are everything is solid, but it's all cut out to show the color wood that's behind it. And then the next one opens up and, you know, it's cut out so you can see the wood behind it, which gives it that color and dimension. And then the next layer and the next layer, right, to create that full design. And what you end up with is a pretty cool layered design of a pretty cool project. And you have all those different layers. And like I said, your background is black, right, or what have you. In this case, then it's tan, brown. So when you cut out the tan layer, it's exposing all the black. You can see the black panel behind it. Then when you cut out the brown layer, it's exposing all the tan. When you cut out the light brown, it's showing all the dark brown. When you cut out the dark brown, it's showing all the light brown. So every layer, you're just cutting out areas to show the area behind it so that it creates that kind of stacked effect, right? And pretty cool stuff. And I just wanted to share that with you with those two channels. Definitely go back in the beginning of the video where I showed you their channels and give them some love, man. Buy a couple. There's some pretty cool stuff. There's some pretty cool projects. Okay, that being said, let's get back to our work here. And back to our design. Okay. And on our design, front hills, frame, have our design here. There we go. All right. So first, again, we make copies of our original, set them aside. Now, each of those copies are going to be used, or if I don't want to lay, I'm laying these out here like this so you can see how this is here and everything. But I don't have to use each one of these and bring them over and cut and trim it all. I can just stack them on top of my, I could stack them on top of each other by taking what I want from my graphic and right clicking. Let's say I want this whole thing, and I right click and I copy that or move it to, if it's the initial one, I move it to its layer, right? Let's say frame. And then from there, I'm going to immediately copy it to its second layer, the background. That way I have it. I prefer, instead of doing that, because there's a chance that you can miss something, I prefer to make however many copies that I need for the layers. In this case, there was 6. And have them here as a backup if I need them, or to pull elements from as I need them. And we are going to look at the back mountain range and the frame and the back panel. We're going to make that together, and then we're going to kind of work on the other ones that aren't finished yet. So let's take this for a moment. I want to turn on all the layers. They're all on. I want to move this to the side because that's going to be our working one. We're going to come back to that one in a second. And I just want to take one of these originals. Don't care which one. And I want to center it, align to center the material. And let's say we always start with the frame. Good rule. Let's start with the frame. So the first thing I'm going to do before I do anything is I'm going to click on the frame, which is the outside line here. And believe it or not, you would think that this is the frame here, and these are like what creates the, mountain scenes and all that. But that's actually the inside of the frame right here. And if you think in a straight line, it actually connects together and creates that inside of the frame. And we have to, because it's not really there. It's been cut off in sections, been chunked up and everything. So we'll create that in just a moment. But first thing I like to do is we're going to start with the simplest one. The outline is usually always intact. So I'm going to immediately right click, and I'm going to, we'll move it. Yep, move it to a layer, and I'm just going to start new layer. So a new layer, and I'm going to call this my class frame. I'm going to give it a different color, maroon, and I'm going to click OK. So now I can see that that's on a different layer, and eventually I can, if I need to, I can turn that layer off to get that line out of my way. Okay. Now that class frame, that's the outside of the frame. Now I need the inside of the frame. Well, in this situation, I'm not going to try to cut and trim and node edit and all that. I'm just going to remake that inside frame. But I need to know what the dimension is. So I'm going to take my measurement tool, and I'm going to measure vertically from that outside line to this inside line, and it's 0.5346 inches. So that becomes my offset distance. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to select this outside frame vector, and I'm going to use my offset tool, and I'm going to offset inward 0.5346 and click offset. And now I have 2 vectors, and since I offset that in that class layer, if I turn off my main design here, you can see I'm left with just the frame, right? Those 2 parts. Okay. So now the frame is done. That's the frame. That's it. That's the frame. So now I am going to turn that layer off and turn my other design back on, right? And now I have my back panel. Now the back panel is going to be somewhere in here. It's not going to be this line, because this line, if I turn that frame back on, it's right at the corner of the frame. And my back panel, think of it sitting like a picture frame. It's going to sit into like a little 1/4 inch offset, data or what have you. It's going to kind of sit in there somewhere. So it could very well be represented by this line right here, because this is my inside frame right there. And that's offset a little bit in, but I'd like to see it a little bit more. So I'm going to just take, and I'm going to kind of measure my inside frame, or not really measure my inside frame. I'm going to just offset my inside frame outward. So let's go to the design tool. My inside frame is that inside line right there. I'm going to offset it outward. And I'd like just a 1/4 inch offset. Sharp corners, 1/4 of an inch, 0.25. Okay. And that vector, I'm going to move to a new layer, and I'm going to call it my class back panel. Okay. So now on my class back panel, let's give that a color of whatever, green. I can kind of see that little bit of a difference there. But now I have those 3 items. So once again, in my layers, if I turn off my main design, I have my back panel vector, and I have my frame vector. So right now I've already got 2 of the elements that I need for this project. Okay. Now the back panel one becomes the anchor, because all of the vectors are going to be tied to that size. That's not the back panel itself, but the size of the back panel. They're going to be tied to that size of that back panel, because I need them to stretch out, or I need them to kind of, be that. So what's going to happen is now I know my next layer is going to be my mountain range. And I could, at this point, I can go ahead and just make that I've kind of either written down or made notes for myself. I can go ahead and start adding my new layers. So my class back mountains, my class mid mountains, my class, not my, I don't need the word by there, but class trees and forward mountains. I don't want to say front, forward mountains. And you're not going to sit here and watch me node edit for 6 hours to get this design right, but we're going to learn the process. That's what the guarantee is, to learn the process. Mount, and again, MTN, mountain, right? I don't need to write the whole damn thing out. Okay, then next layer is going to be my deer. All right, class deer. The rocks that are around the deer, so I'll just call these the class rocks. Class does rock, that's for sure. Give a thumbs up if you think the class rocks. And then our front hills, we'll call it front hills. And I need these to say class front hills. Okay, so now I have these layers. And what happens here is the back panel is going to get copied to each one of those layers. So I can turn off the frame for now. I don't need that anymore. Done with the frame. So this one is going to get copied to layer, and you're literally going to, the mountains. Copy to layer, mid mountains, right? And you're going to do that. You're going to repeat that 6 times, 5 times, however many layers you have. Now, people are going to see this, and they, some people do things differently, right? They like, oh, I've made these type of designs before, and that's not how I do it, or anything like that. There's a lot of different ways to get from point A to B. This is just one method that that I'm teaching here. But there's lots of ways to get it done and everything. So our trees, we're going to copy to, not move to, oops, almost made a mistake. Copy to our deer class copy to our rocks. And then we'll talk about the front one. The front one doesn't use the back panel. The front one actually goes on the outside of the frame. Okay. But and because of that, we're going to leave that alone with the front panel. So the front hills is not going to have that. The front hills is, however, going to have the outside line of the frame because it's going to extend out to the outside of the frame. So let's go to the class frame and we'll copy this one to the front hills. All right, so now if I turn everything off, all the empty, or not, they're not empty anymore, but all the layers and everything, and I turn my main design back on, now this is where the copies come in. So when I drag these 6 out, I would take this and I would come in and copy it to, or move it to. Move it to is better because they don't need to be sitting out here. They're sitting out here for my class, right? But I can come in here and I can move it to and whatever layer it is. So in this case, it's going to be the class back mountains. We'll take this one, move to class mid mountains, rinse and repeat for all the layers, right? Turn everything off. Where I got so many layers here. Hold on a second. You won't have this many layers. You'll have 6. Here they are. Okay, so turn everything off and make sure that, let's go ahead, turn everything off and turn only on what we need. We're going to take this and it's going to get centered onto the material. Okay. Now, our back panel vector is already on there. It's already on this layer. And make sure your layer is active. When you're on it, make sure that layer is bold. God, don't start node editing. Don't start node editing or doing anything unless that layer that you're working on is active, because it's going to throw whatever you're doing onto whatever layer is active and just start mixing and bundling and all that stuff. Don't do that to yourself. Make sure that layer is active before you start cutting and trimming. Now, in this situation, the 2 things that we don't need, the one thing that we don't need in this project is the outside frame. That's on the frame layer. We're not dealing with the outside frame. We're dealing with the mountain range, right? So I'm going to go through and kind of get rid of what I don't want and keep what I do, kind of thing. So we'll delete that. Get it out of your hair. The back panel frame, that stays intact. That's our frame. Okay. And what we can, we can't separate its color and all that because it's in the same layer as these vectors here. But we know we're not working with the front rock area or the hills or anything on this particular layer. So we could go in and get rid of that. We know we're not doing the deer on this particular layer, so we could go in and get rid of that. We could come in here and just start getting rid of vectors that we don't need, as long as we are paying attention and we don't end up deleting what we do need, right? And our back mountains, you got to think of it like a straight line right here, coming in here. Think of it like a straight line. Our back mountains are going to be all the mountains up to this line right here. Okay, let me get a zoom in there. This line right here. So that's everything above that. That's the back mountains. So when that's essentially, this is the line I was just talking about. This is going to be the mid-ground mountains here. But essentially, up to that bottom line right there. So we get rid of, whoops, be careful. We're going to get rid of the foreground mountains and all this little debris stuff. All this debris stuff. Oop, not that one. Don't get rid of your mountains. Everything that does not apply. Okay? And this is going to be what's left. The sky, don't need the sky. But we do need this line. That's going to be our main line for our top of our mountains and all. So we'll keep the sky there for a moment. Here's where all of this happens. We go into node editing. And when we're node editing and things, we start, I don't need this part of the sky, right? I don't need this part. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to delete this span. I don't need this span either. And I don't need this one. I'm in node editing. Right click, delete span. That leaves this line all the way to there. Now our extend tool is going to be our best friend in this situation. And we're going to extend the end of these lines here. We're going to extend them to that one vector that we already copied on, which we called the back panel, right, at this point. We're going to extend the line to that on both sides. Okay. Click on the end of the line. It shoots out this pink line. Then click on that frame, and it'll extend the line right to that. Now, technically, we could take our scissors and trim away that top half. And if I move this out of the way for a minute, you can see the vector we have is this vector right here. That's it. That's the vector that we're actually, that's our mountain range. But these inside details here, these inside areas and all, I can visually kind of just make note of them or what have you, of where I'm going to be kind of, dremeling and stuff to create these little mountain peaks. If this was the peak right here and this was kind of angled down this way and this way that we see in our image, once again, we have that peak area and then it's chiseled down or shaved down and all. So these lines right at the middle of the peak and the ridges in the mountains right here, that you got to think of an imaginary line running right down the middle of this. That's those lines right here. So that's that peak. That's the peak. And the rest of this kind of gets shaved down or whatever the case may be. Well, okay. That's one way that we could, that we do it. We made the vector we needed. That's the vector because our sky, this is all going to get cut out, profile cut. And our sky is the back panel. So now there's our dimension so far, Then we Dremel or we shave or we sand to create the shape of the top of those mountains, or we don't. You can have a flat design too, your choice. But okay, but I have these right here. Can I do anything with them that, that could be useful to me or what have you? If you wanted to extend, the process or the runtime or something, you could absolutely use one of these vectors or create a vector off of this that can help you create kind of that mountain scene. If you have like a Spire where you can build 3D models. And so on this situation, let's say I don't have a Spire, I can't do that and everything, then I'm going to be using this just as a visual reference. I'm not going to run any kind of toolpath on it at all, but I'm going to use this as a visual reference to help me kind of determine where I want to, shave or sand or something, right? I can kind of, look at my reference image, because most likely you've made some kind of reference image or something, and you can see, you might not have made a 3D reference like that, but you made your graphic. Look at your reference image, see if it helps you or any and all that. But here, what I can do is I can take this bottom line and create a completed vector. And I would do that. I'm not going to do the whole thing because I already have one of these vectors. So I'll show you what it looks like at the end. But I'm going to just take you through a quick process of how this would work. So this vector, I don't care about, right? If I was making this 3D model kind of situation. All these inside vectors, that one I do care about. This one I do care about. This one up here I don't care about. That one I care about. And the reason why I care about them is because I need this bottom line. This bottom line helps create my reference point. And this one I don't care about. Okay, so here, if I go to node editing, I'm going to pick the farthest point out, and I'm going to cut the vector right there. Come all the way over to here where the gap is, where that gap is right there. And here too, let's not skip one. Right here, I'm going to cut the vector here. Pick a spot. I'll choose this one. Cut it there. That cuts this vector loose right here, so I can delete it out. So it leaves that void right there. Come over here. I'll cut the vector here, and then somewhere over here, let's just do it right down here and cut it. All the way over to where this gap is right here. I'm going to pick a spot. Let's pick right here and cut it. And I'm cutting right on the nodes. I find a node in most cases. Cut that vector. Now what I've just cut is, if I delete this, that leaves this line here. And on this one, if I delete that, you can see what's happening here now. I've got this line that's happening. So here on the other side, doesn't always have to be the straight part. You can come up high, whatever the case may be, cut the vector, do the same thing over here, cut it. I'll do the angle on this one, cut, cut. Now, when I cut that, again, I can go back and get rid of the delete, because all I'm keeping is that lower line, right? So here I can, I can get rid of that. No, I can't get rid of that. Ooh. This one needs a cut. That one's already cut. I can get rid of that. But that's good. This connects all the way over here, and I need to cut it right here. This next gap, at the gaps. So cut the vector over here on this side of the gap, the valley, whatever you want to call it. Cut that. So now this upper part I can get rid of, because again, I'm keeping just that bottom line. Here, I've already cut it on the left side. Let's cut it on the right side somewhere. And then jump over the valley, and we'll cut it. We'll do this peak one right here. That takes care of this upper part. This, I got to follow all the way around to this end right there. Cut the vector. Okay, so and that gets rid of that part. Now what I do is I'm going to use my extend tool, and I'm going to extend this to that boundary, that border. I'm going to extend it to there. And then I can't just select all the lines. You can't select all the lines and try to join them. I can only do 2 lines at a time. So I'm going to select these 2 lines right here. Take my mouse, right to left. Just drag over them. And I'm going to join. I like the smooth curve. I'm going to join with a smooth curve. Next one. Right click or right drag the mouse up. So it selects those 2. Join with a smooth curve. Now I'm connecting the dots, basically. It's join with a smooth curve all the way to the end. And you can also join with a straight line if you want. Either one. I like smooth curve, join with a straight line, whatever. Smooth curve. Join with a smooth curve. And at the very end, it's the extend tool. We're extending that line to here. Now I have this vector that's one solid vector, okay? That vector. And if I take both of these items, hold down the control key, drag over, I'm dragging a copy here. I don't want to screw up my main piece. That's my main piece right there. I want to copy, because I'm going to take my scissors and cut that. How you doing, Craig? All is well. I appreciate that. Now that I've cut that away, I have a closed vector here. Now, I don't have to do this, but if I had a spire and I wanted to do this, I need a closed vector if I'm going to try to build a model, right? And so here I've created that closed vector. So I could go into my modeling tools and I could say, okay, I'm going to do a 25-degree angle. 25-degree angle. I'm going to run 100%, but I'm going to scale it down. Let's scale it down 25%. And I'm going to click apply. And if I look at the 3D view, I've kind of created that mountain peak, right? So I've created that sculpted edges and everything. Now let's go, instead of 25%, we could build the peaks up a little bit higher. But really, ultimately, it's a 1/4 inch thick panel. So we can't really exceed, like here I can use, if I have version 12.5, I can use this shape height tool to increase or decrease my peaks, right? And so therefore I could technically come in here and just type in, 0.2, I'll just go 0.23. Oops, too many decimal points. 0.23 and hit enter. So that way I know that I'm not thicker than my 1/4 inch panel, right? And I know that I don't really want to shave the back side of this. I mean, I could, technically I could, because I'm going to have my front mountains in front of it or what have you. They're going to kind of be in front and all. But if I was trying to connect this to the back panel, where it was a solid panel, and only the peaks were milled or shaved or what have you, I can draw or create a vector so that the machining only happens in a certain area. So on my peaks and everything, I have a freehand tool, and the white areas, the high white areas, represent my peak. And I only want this main straight line here. I could come in here and carefully start to freehand draw along that white band. I don't have to be, I want to be kind of in the middle of it. I don't have to be on one side or the other of it. And if you can't see it, there's a feature that we can right click on this. If you can't see that white line very well, it's only really visible when you click on it. You can right click and go down to appearance, and you can turn the fading off so it never fades even when you're not clicked on it. And you can that way you can see the lines. Now I need to connect what I'm about to draw to this line that I stopped prematurely. So I'm going to hold down the control key, and I'm just going to connect right back to it. Actually, I'm going to hit undo on that one because I have screwed up. Hold down the control key, and I want to just kind of come in here. Okay. Now, by doing this, creating this line, I have a spire. So I'm going to go into node editing and just kind of pull this out a little bit further here. But I have a spire, and I can use what's called the split tool. So I can take a component, and I can have a selected vector, and I can use the split tool, which will cut. Oh, hold on a second. I need to have a complete line here. And I missed my little join right there. So I need to, give me a second. Missed my little connection right there. Okay, got to have one single vector. And the mountain scene. And when we go into our split tool, it'll cut that right along that point. Is I can turn that off, you know, leaving just this here, and the stop. I can then take my other vector, and again, this is a whole step. Again, if you wanted to do this, I think chiseling and sanding and all is much quicker, right? Kind of thing. But if I was doing a flat panel, let's go 1/4 inch thick flat panel, merge. Merge. Now, cool little effect. If it works, fingers crossed, if it works. On this back panel, I might have to create the back panel twice, one with the lower, one with the upper, but let's see what happens here. I want to merge low. So it should merge the parts together and only keep the low areas when two models combine. So in my components on that vector that I just created, if I change that to a combine mode of merge low, it should keep those areas in there, only the low parts. Now, that doesn't give me the effect that I quite want, because it needs to really kind of fade in. It's too high up here. So, and also I'm blending just a little, too many little fibers and stuff there. So it kind of, you know, again, I'm making extra work for myself when I don't really need to. Sandpaper does a lot. Chiseling does a lot, that kind of thing. But just giving you some home runs here. All right, or some options. In my 3D view, if I go into here, I can do a, I can do a fade, and I can fade from here to here. Oh, I don't know why it does that to me every time. Let's try that again. Fade. Click is 1. There we go. And 2 is here. And I can fade into that range. And in this case, I will, let's crank it up just a little bit more. About like that. And that gets me started. And then, of course, now I just have a little bit of sanding to do to kind of blend those two things in. And all this edge stuff, that if I change this combine mode to merge, and if I made that back, if I wouldn't have brought my other mountain scene, this flat panel, all the way out to here, then I wouldn't have that problem. So let me back up 2 steps. If I use this vector, that's the one I just cut the thing in half with. I'm going to offset that vector very quickly so we can move on past this, because I don't want this to be some kind of 3D build class, even though we're technically building a 3D dimensional item. But if I offset this outward 10,000ths of an inch, 0.01, and create that line right there, I can take that and this vector, hold down the control key, drag it over here, and trim away this upper area here, this line here, this line here. Now, my back panel component, I'll get rid of that. I don't want that anymore because this is going to be my new component. And on my new component, I am going to, hopefully I created enough of an overlap that it will do fine, but I will come in here and create a flat panel, 1/4 inch thick, 0.25, merge low, create. Okay. Then, once again, now those fibers are gone, those things that I were just dealing with, right? Now I go in and turn on the fade. %50 fade is fine. Start to slide this in here. And here's where it all comes together. I have a spire. So I take both of these visible items. I don't want to screw up my original, so I make a model version of it, a copy of it. I turn off the originals, and I take that copy over to the sculpting tool. And then we're going to leave it at that. I'm just giving you concepts and ideas. And I'm going to start sculpting this, blending those two areas together. Smoothing things out, blending those two areas together. Depending on how much smoothing you do, click OK. And then we have this back panel with this sculpted top that all the other layers can lay on top of, right? So I can either do that by just cutting out a simple profile cut and doing some sanding and everything, or I could do it this way, right? All that just for that, just to show you that, right? That's it, all that. We're not going to get into that anymore. You get the concept. We're going to cut it off there. Okay, so let's turn that off completely. Here, the vector that I really care about is this bad boy, right? Not that one. That one. This bad boy right here. This one with the mountain peaks. That's my vector. That's the part that I'm cutting out. Okay. So what I will do here is everything but that, all of this, I will move to its own layer, and I will call this my back class back mountain 3D vectors, right? So if I was doing it in 3D, and I'm going to turn that layer off to get rid of it, because all I care about is that right there. That's my vector. Profile cut it out, do a little bit of sculpting on the tips, done. Okay, now in my layers, so now what I have, if I come in here in my class and I turn that, the back class frame and the back panel on, this is where I'm sitting at right now. So these are all the vectors I've created thus far. Okay, now for time-wise and everything, I've already created the vector for the mid-range and everything. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the vectors I've created that I still need to work with. They're not done yet, but I'm going to create the project that I've started for time-wise. And I'm going to bring that back over to the center of my board here. And we're going to remove the frame, back panel, and back mountains. I'm going to turn off. Let's pretend we haven't gotten to the front or anything. The next section is that mid-range mountain scene. Okay. That mid-range mountain scene. And the way this was created is the same way you just saw me node edit and create the bottom line. So let's look at what that mid-range line looked like originally. It's right here. The top line is coming right here down the center of this. And the bottom of that line is right here, kind of cut. The trees are hiding it. I'm sorry, the bottom, that's a lie. The bottom line is right here. The trees are hiding it, right? They're kind of in front of it. So what happened was, to create that, these vectors were node edited, cut and trimmed. You can see the blue area here where that bottom line was connected, where all the gaps were, just connected and brought over to that border area. And as that in the blue, it's in the blue here. If you guys, girls, can see that blue. If you have, and I apologize if you have any color blindness that I'm not aware of or anything, but it is a blue line, and you can kind of see where that line is kind of going through the trees. And this is where, because the trees and everything are going to cover it, you draw the line, right? So essentially what happened was, I kind of looked at, if you look very closely, these are the openings, these vectors here. Notice how this follows that bottom opening. And then this one follows that bottom opening. And then this one follows that bottom opening, right? Just like we did. We created those gaps just a moment ago in node editing. And this is that bottom opening and everything. And all this stuff in between those areas are that joined with a smooth curve. So when I joined these two lines, it created this curve. All the way, joined with a smooth curve, it created that curve. And it connected them all together until we extended out to that frame. Once it got extended out to the frame, everything was, cut free of that. And it created, if I turn everything off, this mid-range of vectors here. Now, that mid-range of vectors, which is technically that's the mid-mountain range there. But I still have my back panel, that line still, that bottom line, that top line is still connected to that back panel vector that's on the layer already and trimmed to create that vector or vectors. If I wanted to do the little 3D element again here, I could, or I can just utilize this to do a little sculpting or not. If you look at our reference image here, there's no sculpting, very little on that mid-range. The only thing that's done here is a staining to create the peaks areas with a stain. Nothing there. Okay. And so this vector, although it's here, it's not really serving a purpose. We're not doing a profile cut on this. We're not cutting this out. We're cutting all of this out. This panel, profile cut. And so when this all gets done, you have a choice. You can put each of your individual layers on their own sheet, because you can separate sheets here now. And each sheet represents your panel. Or you can just turn on the layer, create the profile toolpath. Turn off the layer, turn on the next layer, create the profile toolpath. Turn off the layer, turn on the next layer, create the profile toolpath. You don't have to separate them in sheets. But if you wanted to, we could take this layer, the back mountain layer, the front, which I'm not in the back mountain layer, the mid-range mountain layer, make sure that layer is active. We could turn around and select it and move it to its own sheet, right? Call it the mid-mountain range layer. And what that does is it puts it on its own sheet over here, so I can create the toolpath and cut it out. I could do that. I could separate all 6 of my layers by 6 different sheets, because I am going to be using 6 different sheets to cut it out. Theoretically, technically, I am. Or I can just create the profile toolpath. Right? Use, use tabs if you need to, or any of that stuff. But I could create the profile toolpath, and I could just name my toolpath mid-mountain range. Mountain range. Either way, whatever you want to do. If I come in here, this first profile is my back mountain range that I cut earlier, that I created a toolpath on earlier. So if I could rename that, that's my back mountain range, right? And so now I have, if I reset this preview, I have one panel. It's going to be cut. Could be a stained panel, could be a painted panel, could be whatever. But it's a back panel. I might do a little sculpting on the edges to give the mountains a little character. Don't have to, but I could. So that's my back panel. Then I have a toolpath that's going to cut out another panel that stacks on top of this. That's why it's called a stack text design, that creates my mid-mountain range, right? So that panel gets cut out, and it gets glued on top of the other one. They all get lined up. I like going here, so I can line up all the edges, get everything nice and lined up, because they're all going into the frame area, right? Kind of thing. So now I have 2 panels. I have my back mountain range panel and my mid mountain range. And I want you to ignore all of the inside characters. If I move them out of the way, those are just the character areas. These are the 2 vectors for my 2 panels. Okay. I know, right? I know, right, Harvey? I know. 2, all these people watching, only 2 likes. Give a like if you're learning anything. All right, here we go. So thanks for calling that out, Harvey. Appreciate that. Yeah. Appreciate that. Now, let's turn that layer off, those 2 layers off for a moment. Trees and the deer. Now this one I have not done yet. This one we're working. We are live working it right now. Now what I will do, now this is in a blue color layer. It's hard to see the vectors. Let's change the color just for right now to black so everybody can see them. And we're actually, this is the layer we're working. Now, here's something you got to be mindful or be aware of. This little mountain vector right in here, that's actually going to get pocket cut. It's going to get pocket cut, so it's just sitting a little lower than the trees, right? The trees are going to be, let's say, the foreground. And I'm not separating this mountain and the trees, okay? They're together on one panel. But I'm going to make a little pocket cut so it's back just a little bit. And what that's also going to do, it's going to create a little elevation or what have you for my deer that's going to get cut next to sit on top of. So it looks like the deer is in front of that back area. And again, it gives this result here, right? So that this area here is going to be pocketed down a bit. So the trees are just standing. It looks like the trees are just standing off of it. And then the wood behind the antlers and everything are going to be there. So if my deer antlers are a little fragile or whatever, I have a little bit of substance to sit on top, because that's going to sit on top, right? Kind of thing. Oh, I keep minimizing. So that's going to be a pocket area. And in order for it to be a pocket, I want to pocket all of that area between the trees, all these little down areas and things like that. So I have to really kind of connect this vector. And now this is live right here now, ladies and gentlemen. I haven't pre-worked this ahead of time, this design, this part right here. So you're going to see the creation of this layer live. Now, when the software traced this, okay, it created this because the line of the trees and the line of the mountain, you got to think of an imaginary line right down the middle here, okay? An imaginary line right down the middle. That's that black line that was in the graphic. In this graphic right here. So the line, this tan colored line, that's our line. But the software traced a line here and it traced a line there, right? Our line is the middle, essentially, kind of. But that's, that's our, like, think of it like a pencil line, right? And if I drew a pencil line, here, and the software traced it, it would trace this side of the black. Oh God, what's a pencil made out of? Lead. This side of the lead and that side of the lead. It doesn't trace right down the middle of the line, kind of thing. So when we're looking at this, let's get our mid-mountain range. We got to get it turned off. Make sure trees and front mountain range are live and active, because that's what we're going to be editing and all that wonderful stuff. And here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just keep my upper line. I want to keep my lower line around the antlers and all too. That's going to be the main part. It's going to be a pocket area, but it's not going to pocket into the trees. So I got to kind of decide where my tree branch stops and that pocket, stops, and I got to connect the dots. So here, I'm going to go into node editing. Ooh, lots of nodes. And I'm going to take right at the end, right before it curves, and I'm going to cut the vector right here. And we'll, not done yet. Cut that there. The tree itself, this tree, I got to cut, hold on a second. Before the tree, I got to cut, let me just cut it right here for a moment. That's good. The tree. So what I'm going to do is kind of imagine, based on my size, the way this project is scaled, I need to kind of imagine what the center point is here. Not imagine, I can measure. And I can measure a length from here to here. And that measurement's about a 1/16 of an inch, so 0.0654. So roughly about a 1/16 of an inch. And I don't need to be exact, just roughly I know what that is. So half of a 1/16 is a 32nd. I'm going to take this vector. I'm going to offset it. I'll go outward and see if that's the correct direction. I don't even know what the correct direction is at this particular moment in life. 0.03125. And I'm going to offset it. I'm not going to take sharp corners. And I want to see it go outward. Now, notice what it did. It only offset this little line segment here. It did not go, it did not do the whole tree. Now, let's go inward and see if that changes anything. And it does. The thing is one vector, because it's an open vector, right? It's creating, you know, there's issues, there's things that we got to do a lot of little cleanup, but not a lot, but, you know, but I need this outside line. That line is important to me. Okay. And the reason why I need that line is because this line that I just cut, I'm going to end up connecting to this. This is going to be part of my vector pocket cut. Remember, like I said, that, you know, that material is going to get milled down, you know, kind of thing, you know, so it looks like the tree's standing up. So I'm okay with this, you know, creating this partial line here, because all of this inside stuff is going to kind of go away. My bottom line, they will connect somewhere down here to create the bottom part of the pocket, and that's fine. I'm all good with that. So here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into node editing, and I'm going to go, first I'm going to get rid of my trouble. My trouble is this little overlap, little zigzag dealy. And I'm going to just, in node editing, I'm going to delete those points. Woo, don't do that. Let's try that again. Delete those points. Well, you son of a gun. Stay with me now. All right. Interesting. All right. Oh, it's not overlapping. It's not overlapping. That's why it's cutting the whole thing. That looked like an overlap. That's why you got to zoom into things. Okay. So that's fine. Node editing. I know now it's not overlapping. So I'm just going to cut it back here somewhere for right now. And then I can delete that section. There we go. I was like, man, why is it deleting? All right. Now here, I can take this and this vector, and I can join it with a smooth curve. I can join it with a straight line. I can do whatever, you know, the situation may be, you know, to connect those two together, whatever floats my boat, right? Whatever I'd like to do. And I'll even not give myself that too sharp of a point there. I'll kind of round that off, but just connect that together. So now this vector, I'm only focusing my attention on the top right now. So the top of my vector technically now goes here and around the outside of this tree all the way over to here. Okay. Now my border plays a role. That frame border that's on that layer, that plays a role, and it is going to get trimmed, not right this second, but in a minute it's going to get trimmed, because this whole top part is, get rid of it. It from here to there. Matter of fact, I could probably already do that with the scissors. I could just trim up here, and there we go. It'll cut it down to where it's connecting down here, over here, and over here. Now this is my outside offset right here. And the outside offset kind of connects, and it goes outside of this tree, right? The tree goes outside of here and everything, and the tree is, you know, that area's got to kind of get pocketed down, because remember, the tree is kind of standing up in front, and I want this stuff. So that part of the line I can't use. So I'm going to actually come down to here, cut, and then I'll cut away all this stuff that, none of that stuff up there I can use, right? Get rid of that line. Now I'm connected here. So now this little vector that got drawn out here, trim that. And now I've got a vector that comes around and connects here all the way to the top. Now I got to deal with this continuation down here. It is still connected to my tree. And if you remember on the tree, when I did the offset a moment ago, and I offset inward was what I needed, but when I did the outward offset, it created the, now it's going to do the inward. It created the line that I needed. It was in here. And it's not there anymore. It's now on the outside, and that's fine. I'm okay with that. It's no big deal. But I would much prefer that my 1/16 of an inch, my tree, I'm going to cut the vector again. I don't remember where I cut it last time, but it was somewhere right in this vicinity. Okay. And this line, let me offset again, that 32nd of an inch. Wrong direction. There we go. This is the line that I want for just this right here for a moment. Is that the line I want? No, that's not the line I want. Let me think for a second. I want to carve. I do want the other way. Oh, you booger dash. There we go. Okay. That's going to be my new, this will be my new tree vector here, but let's get it connected. So this goes into node editing right here, node editing. I'm going to cut the vector here, and I'm going to extend it to here. Cut the vector there. And these two vectors, I'm going to join with a smooth curve. Not that smooth of a curve. It twisted it kind of the wrong way. I want to kind of more so, no, it did okay. I was looking at it wrong. Connect that. So that's this vector right here now. Again, ignore this. This is, we've already done the outside. It's cut right here. So this vector is not a, that vector is, this vector is not attached. Okay. So this line and everything, this area right here is not attached. And we're going to be deleting it in just a second. But I need to, this is going to be an open void right here. So it's got to carve around these deer antlers right there. So this entire pocket all the way to, I'm just going to cut it back here for a minute. Cut the vector. So this whole line right here, delete, gone. I should have one line that travels all the way around. It will join to this. These two lines are not connected together at the moment. This one here. One line coming around. This offset, that's trash, and just this part is trash, but not out here. It comes all the way around, and it's going to do a pocket cut all the way around here. Give me a moment, and you'll see. The tree, there's my tree. I was looking for the end of the tree. Node editing. I'm going to cut the vector here and get rid of this piece of trash right there. And I'm going to join these two, smooth curve. Let's straighten it a little bit. So that'll be the end of that tree branch right there. So that is the tree vector. If I took that, that is a closed vector. Think of that by itself, if you will, but, and this is all pocket cut. You'll see in just a moment. Bear with me. It'll make sense, I swear. All right. So This is all going to get cut out so the trees are standing up. I'm sorry. This is all, oh hell, I gotta look at my own reference image. Yeah, this is all cut out so the tree trunks are standing out. And so I need an offset around them because this is all going to be flat. I can't mill this down. I can only mill around these trees, this upper area here. So this vector has to connect here. Give me a second. Node editing. Cut the vector here. That one looks like it's connected. It is. Cut it right there. This square going all the way around on the inside here, all the way to here, that can be deleted. Okay. That leaves, and let me take this one and move it down just so you can, oop, don't move it to the side, straight down. Move that down for a minute. Here, these two vectors get connected with a smooth curve. I know it's crazy and tedious, but this is why it doesn't, that's why I said in the beginning, it is not a, it's not a 20-minute job by any means, right? But we're creating this vector. This vector, you know, here is going to get, you know, pocketed. Now, what's important, what's very important is this. What's very important is that that we don't mill away areas that shouldn't be milled, like, you know, the support that's behind where the deer is. Well, I don't have the deer here, so I need part. That's what my copies are for. That's what my copies are for. I really need hold down the control key. I'm dragging a copy. I'm borrowing from this one. I'm dragging this copy down, right? And I want hold down the control key. I'm dragging a copy down. I want this. I want the deer body, and I want the outside line of the deer body. Before I even think about laying it on top of my design and confusing myself even more, I'm only going to take the vector that I want. And this vector that I want is technically this pocket right here, this pocket between the legs, this pocket between the legs, this pocket between the legs, and this big pocket right there. That's the vectors that I want. That helps me create the outline of the deer where the wood needs to stay. This little skinny deer right in here, that's not my finished deer. That's not the part that's getting cut out. That's not the profile. It's the outside part is the deer. So I need this. I need to turn off my, hold on a minute. I need this. Trying to get my thoughts straight here. I need to copy this or move this. Sorry, not copy, move. It's a copy already. Move it to my deer scene, so I can turn off those originals. That leaves me back here where I was. And I need this vector. This vector is going to help me with aligning everything. So I need that. This. Man, my nose itches. This. On the other side, I need this. The rock between the legs, We'll do this one too, just I can get rid of what I don't need. That vector, this vector, between this tree and that tree, and this tree. Okay, those are the vectors that I need. And therefore, because they will connect, or they will kind of create, you know, the outside line, which is that line right there. That's this line right here, you know. But those are the vectors I need. And the reason why I grabbed this bottom one is because I can then I'm not going to grab the bottom one. I'm going to grab the tree. Oh, you son of a gun. Let me find a tree that's by itself. That's fine. I'll grab those trees. The reason why I'm grabbing those, the sole purpose of them coming with the this project and all, is to give me a snapping point. So when I come in here and I snap this to the top of the tree, it'll turn blue, kind of a bluish green, like when I'm on it. And let me see if I can zoom in when I do that. Hold on a second. Let me zoom in to here so you can see it. Let me grab it first. I'm grabbing it right on the tip of that tree. Well, Lord have mercy. I zoomed in too far. Right on the tip of that tree. And when I snap it to the tip of this tree, it turns kind of a aqua, bluish green color. It means I'm right on top of it. Okay. And now that I'm on top of it, on the three trees, I don't need that vector. That's just trash for me, right? So I'm going to delete that. And I'm left here with these rocks. And the only thing I care about, what I care about is this. Here I'm pocketing, I'm removing all this material. So this is my pocket vector. And my pocket vector actually connects to the top of this line right here. So it's all node editing, cut the vector down here, pick a spot down here, cut the vector. That top line I want, this line I don't, delete. This line, this all this area here is going to get pocketed out. So this line technically I want, so I'll cut it here. Cut it here. And if I'm pocketing all this out, might as well just join this one there. So cut it there. It'll connect here. That'll connect there and come on around. So I don't need any of this all the way up to this ear. So I can cut that. So now I can get rid of this line, delete. Gone. I have an open vector right there that'll get connected down here to the deer. We're going to complete the deer's ear. So the deer's ear will connect here. That's fine. So I'll join this to there. I could freehand draw it in, you know, if I wanted to, or I could join it with a smooth curve. Let's see how that does for me. There we go. Complete that off. Good. So we're going to be carving inside of here. I might have to do a little sanding work right there because my 16th inch bit isn't going to be able to get in there. But the pocket let's extend this to here. Extend, well, extend this to here with a smooth curve. And that's going to go to, think about it, Laney, think about it. This is my top line. Node editing. Okay. Get rid of that. This is going to extend to here with a smooth curve. We'll just do that. That's fine. This goes away. Now I'm milling in to here so I can cut all this lower stuff away. Ooh, what I just delete up there. I need to keep that, so I can't just use the scissors. I got to do node editing. Delete this span right here. I'll keep that one for now because I'm not on that side. Now I can take my scissors and trim that away. Okay, so what we have here, oh Lord, what the world? Oh, undo. My layer wasn't active. And everything I did was landed on that other layer. So undo gets me back to a safe position. Make sure the dang layer is active. And then we'll rejoin these vectors back together. This right straight across gets cut. This gets milled away. This gets milled away. This doesn't. This is nothing. That is nothing. So that can go away. That's a pocket. The router bit's going to carve away in there. The router bit's going to carve away in there. The router bit's going to carve away in there. It's going to keep all this stuff intact here. So if it's carving in between this pocket and it's carving all of this, this is my rock. That's got to stay solid. On this, woo, it's tough when you're trying to make the vectors, you know. So that's, like I said, it's not a project for the timid for sure. All right, so let's get rid of things that cause me stress. All right, my pocket, my software is gonna, or my router bit's gonna carve all inside of here around this vector. It's gonna carve in here. So this has to connect to this. So node editing, cut the vector here. It needs to come down to this line right here. Cut the vector there. These two lines need to Yes, these two lines need to join. I'm going to join them with a straight line. There we go. So the router bit's going to be cutting in here. It's going to be cutting in between here. It's going to cut all around this little area. And it's very important now. It's very important to make sure I have a 1/16 of an inch. Can my 1/16 of an inch end mill fit in there? If it cannot, then it won't cut. And it cannot at all. So it won't pocket any of that away. Oh my God. We'll deal with that in a minute. This tree does not need to stand out that far. Pocket cut, milling, 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 mill, mill, mill. Right here, this ear gets connected together, node editing. Cut the vector back here. It gets connected over here with this ear, this part of the ear. And so this line and this line get joined together with a smooth curve. Now it went to the wrong line. So I'm going to actually delete this span. There we go. All three of these trees get offset outward. Oh man, it takes a minute, ladies and gentlemen. I don't want this whole class being this. You're getting the idea, but I want to at least do one layer, and then you can see the process, and then you just do that for the others. Because this is you sitting here watching me node editing for 6 hours it would not be a good class at all. This is all going to be pocket area right here. So for right now, I'm just going to come in here and node edit, and I'm just going to cut the vector here and here for a moment. This allows me to get rid of the lines out of my way, right? So I can see where, what's getting cut so far. Now on my trees, I'm going to go ahead and those are my tree vectors. I'm going to go ahead and take this vector right here and cut it right at the leg. This is the leg, and I'm going to get rid of this one. And it's going to come down and join right here. So I'm going to cut the vector here, and I'm going to cut the vector here. And this, delete, that gets rid of it. So here's my line. Those two get joined. I'll join with a straight line here. And then, thank you. As, excuse me for a second. Hey, babe, go outside. My doggy. Okay. 3 trees. This vector, I don't need it there because it's going to carve. It's carving in this area right in here. The tree, it's carving around the tree in this area. It's carving in between the trees where it can fit. If it can't fit, then you must have quit. We'll deal with that in a minute. Now, I need an outline that comes around the trees and connects to here. So I'm going to offset these 3 trees outward that 32nd of an inch, which was half the 16th. This time I'm going outward. And what I'm hoping is that when I connect, what I'm hoping is that when I connect, see, I got to go a 16th. My bit's got to fit if it's going to cut around those trees. And the 32nd was the wrong thinking. So I'm going to go 0.27. And now I'm starting to make sense here. Now I need to connect these two together. So node editing, I'm going to cut the vector here and here. It's going to be cutting inside this. So yeah, I want to get it up in here as far as I can go. So yep, cut it there, and I'm going to cut it here. That line gets deleted. There we go. This line, that cut that I just made right here, that cut, I'm connecting to this line here. So I can delete this span right here and connect these two, join with a smooth curve like that. So my router bit comes and cuts in around the tree. So this vector is part of the pocket. This vector right here is part of the pocket. So that all gets pocketed. This comes down and connects to this line right here. So it comes down. This is all this is going to go away. All that's going to go away. All that. So all this stuff right in here I don't need. None of this. All the way to right here. Pick a spot. It doesn't matter. This whole vector right there goes away. Delete. This vector, oops, get out of node editing. This vector and this vector join together. Join. That gives me one complete vector for pocketing. Now here's my problem. Here I went a 32nd, not a 16th on that tree. So I'm going to fix my mistake. Offset outward a 16th of an inch. Here, take my scissors and connect this line. Don't do that. Connect that line on that 16th of an inch offset right here. So in this situation, I'm cutting down here, not around this tree. So this line goes away. And this line. Yeah, I'll just get rid of this line. The whole inside there. There we go. So I will cut around that tree. That's fine. No big deal. All right, but now I have a 16th of an inch and my bit better fit. Let me see. Did I give myself enough room? I should have. Yes. Yep. All right, so my 16, it will create a toolpath for that. Wonderful. Okay, so this is a pocket cut all in here, inside of here and inside of here. Now these two areas, They will not cut to the full what they're supposed to because my 16th inch bit will not fit. Okay, so this vector is cleaned up. All this stuff in here goes away. Everything in between the trees goes away. So delete all these little inside vectors. They're trash. They mean nothing. Trash, trash. That means something. But I want to pocket all of this out right here, around here, so I might as well not have to go down in there. Makes no sense when I could just pocket this area out by coming straight across. Let's pick a spot, doesn't matter where. Node editing, cut the vector, come over here, we'll cut the vector, and we'll delete this. Join this with a smooth curve. Okay, it'll cut in there. Same thing here, but this one's already done. It only goes to there, good. So it'll carve in there, wonderful. All right, let's create a toolpath. Let's see what this looks like. Holy camole. That took a moment, but let's create a toolpath and see what this looks like. A pocket cut. We're going to go an 1/8 inch deep, maybe less, because it's only a 1/4 inch panel. Let's go a 1/16 of an inch deep just for character. We're going to use our 16th inch taper or end mill, not taper ball nose, end mill. Oh man, that took a minute. All right, and this is just going to be our sample deer pockets. Okay, the blue looks good. Looks like what I'm wanting. Calculate. Preview. Okay. All right. So what I'm wanting, my upper mountain scene is going to be sitting on top of here. So I'm actually wanting all this to be milled away too. I'm wanting all this to be milled away, pocketed away. And that out there, I want that pocketed away. So everything, and that out there. So my mistake, I need to open up one of my back panel layer. There we go. Back panel layer. Copy to the deer layer. Turn the back panel layer off. Oh, you son of a gun. Copy to layer trees. Turn that off. There we go. Okay. So let me look at the 3D view again. This is exactly 100% what I want. This needs, that's good there. So this needs to be no vectors going in here. It needs to be kind of just a straight line around that whole tree. And I want this all gone too. So what that's showing me is my mid-range panel. That range, I need this vector. So I want all of this, I want it to kind of carve all this away into this mid-range here. So I'm going to use this mid-range. I'm going to copy it to the deer layer. That mid-range vector. Because I'm using this line. I'm going to take my scissors. I'm going to trim it right here. And there. Good. Trim it there. So it's going around. And I don't want to go inside these branches. I want this gone. So I need to literally just kind of come pretty much just kind of straight over here. So I'll cut the vector. all this is going to be flattened out. Hold on. All that needs to be flattened out. All flat, all flat. So yeah, I can just cut the vector, node editing. Hell, I'll just cut it right here and get rid of that line, all that. Get rid of all that zigzag. Oh, don't do that. This is still connected here. So again, scissors, just creating this pocket area right here. Scissors, and literally all that can go away. So there we go. There's my outside line. I want this to go away now. Good. So this will extend right straight across, extend tool over to, come on. Right over to there. All that stuff is going to be milled away, so I'm not worried about all that. And there's going to be, yeah. So all that's going to be milled away. I don't want to go inside here, so this needs to just, that needs to stay. All right, node editing. I'm going to cut the vector right here just for a minute. And I'm going to cut this away just for a minute right here. That just gets stuff out of my way. That way I know I'm not dealing with stuff that that's going to confuse me. Okay, so I'm focusing on this, but I'm trying to get rid of all, I don't want to cut in here. I want to cut around. That's my cutoff, right? That's my panel size. So really, technically, node editing, or I'll just use my scissors. Cut that there, there, and there. Cut that away. Cut it there. Okay, over here, that connects down to here. That's great. Get rid of this. Get rid of that. That's going to mill all that away. Cut this over here. Cut that. It's going to come around. Cut this. I don't want this stuff inside there. I want the pocket to mill all that away flat. Don't want to mill any of this stuff in here. So yeah, all that can go away. That, and that little guy right there. All right, new vector for the pocket cut. Let's go back in and, oh, sorry, hold on. Very important. That goes away too. Okay, new vector for the pocket cut. This is the pocket cut vector. This is just for the pocket cut. Lord have mercy. All right, sample deer pocket cut. Let's select all of this. Calculate. Oh, I got an open vector. Hold on a second. let me see what's, oh. Okay. This has an overlap right there. And it, there's an overlap. Stop. Node editing. Delete this span right here because there's already a span there. And then here, there's already a span here. So I have to delete that span because there's already one there. And it created an overlap. So now I can join these. See that single dotted line? If you see a double dotted line, there's an overlap. Now I can join that and close it off as one closed vector. Wonderful. Try that again. Calculate. Still got one open vector. Hold on a minute. Right click, select vectors, all open. Still that one. See the double dark and pink line? That means there's another line below it. So if I select on this, we can see that comes down and everything. And if I select here, there's a line all by itself. So I can hit delete on that. And I can see that this connects all the way around. So now I should be able to calculate that with no errors, reset that preview and preview that visible toolpath to create that pocket around those vectors. Now, Lord of mercy. The whole purpose of that, there's going to be there's a layer that this sits on top of, and there's a layer of mountains that sits on, sits kind of behind this. We got to cut this out here. And so the profile cut for this is the back panel line. This is killing me. Hold on a minute. The back panel line, copy to, stop. There we go. Copy to the deer layer again, the tree in front, not deer layer, sorry, the tree in front layer. And this time we're going to take this vector and that vector. Hold down the control key and pull this off to the side. Copy. Control key makes that copy. We're going to get rid of the areas we don't need. Oh. So I should have one vector, and it should be one closed vector. Oh, it's still open. So always look for the start point, the green node. That's going to tell you where your opening is, because a green start point and a black end point have to come together. If they don't, then it's open at the green node. So this was that overlap and everything is what created that open vector. So we should have that one closed vector there. And once we do that, oops, hold on a second, don't delete that yet. Once we do that, we now have our profile cutout vector. And, oh, shoot. Hold on a minute. I got to keep those little cutouts. That's part of the trees. If I cut that off, I'm in trouble. So one more time, get rid of this. I got to go in there and trim that, and that. Because the trees actually are it'll look okay, but they're gonna kind of sit on top of the frame. But that, and that. And that. There we go. That should be one closed vector. Yes, it is. All right, let's put it back. Okay, so now what we should have is when we do a profile cut on that, that's our main vector. That's our main vector there. And this is the last. We're going to kind of, we've been going long enough. But the profile cut, cutting through the panel, 1/16 of an inch end mill on the outside of the line. That's going to cut that off. Okay. And, that's going to be our next layer. So in our stack and everything. And this is the front mountain range. And it's pocketed just to give the trees some dimension, just to make them, make them feel like they're standing out and everything. We're still going to have a deer sitting on top of this. This is just the backer to the deer. This is just the deer literally gets glued on top of this, and then the rocks get glued on top of that, or the rock panel, each layer. So here, on here, that is that vector, and then we have our deer that gets, that's going to be on top of it, which that layer's got to get worked on all by itself. Wonderful stuff it is. The foreground rocks are going to go on top, and then the front hill, right? So all this is going to be stacked. And once again, for those of you that are visual or might be joining late or anything like that, or might be like kind of lost again or anything, what we just created was this area here, right here. And that's the little 1/16 of an inch pocket that we just created. You got to think about that pocket going all the way around the deer. These rocks and everything aren't in there yet. We haven't done those layers. These are the deer, these 2 lower rocks, or 3 lower rocks, and the front area, that's the next layers. That's the next step. So we haven't done that yet. What we just did is we created a pocket area that cut around these trees out of a panel. That panel is going to get connected here. And right here, the trees, these should be on that. The trees should be cut, free. Let me see what I do here. Did I run a square on that? That is, dadgummit. That's my upper line. Let me see here. Hold on a minute. That's my upper range. Oh, there's my mid route and range. Dadgummit. Hold on. Let me put this back where it belongs. Give me a second. One second, ladies and gentlemen. Let me turn things off that don't belong on here. That's my pocket going all the way around. The pocket should have been on this lower line. The pocket should have been on this lower line, and the profile cutout should have been, profile cut should have went on the edge of the tree, because the edge of the tree is kind of freestanding. So I cut everything based on this line right here, this line. And it should have been, the pocket area should have just been this line right around the trees. So I screwed up. Everybody screws up. Anyway, so we want to make sure that we're working on the active layer. Yes, for sure. And it looks like I want to go back to my drawing here. That's my pocket area. Yeah, man, I sure did. I went off the upper vector, and I'm a goofball. This is my pocket area, the lower vector, the lower part of this, the mountain range. This is already cut. That's layer. That's that mid-range vector. That's this guy. And then we have our, our back range vector, right? Back range, mid range. This lower line right here was supposed to be my pocket line, not the upper line. And I have the pocket going to the upper line like a dummy. So, easy enough fix. We just because the vector is, this is the profile cut. It's not our, the pocket area is fine, but our profile cutout. Okay. This could get tedious. We have a situation here. I need two separate sets of vectors for this. One for the profile cut, one for the pocket cut. It's happening on the same project. Well, this is the profile cut. It cuts here and then it comes to the tree. The pocket cut is different. The pocket cut, this upper part of the tree doesn't get involved with the pocket cut. It only comes kind of around in this area and stuff. So this bottom blue line going out to here is 100% correct. And that's fine. It needs to come here for the pocket cut, this bottom blue line right here. So connecting to there, coming around to this rock, right around the deer, all the way to here. All of this is all correct up to this line. So the pocket cut, easy fix. All I have to do is I want to make sure I don't screw up and delete something that should be for the, the profile and all that. So I'm going to take this and just hold down the control key and move it to the side. I'm going to work on the side for a moment because I know I just have to fix my pocket. This upper line should not have been, this upper line is not the profile cutout and it's not the pocket cutout. They shouldn't have been introduced. My mistake. So what I have to fix really quickly is this right here. Very simple. I have to take on this copy the scissors here and cut that so it connects here. Cut here because it's cutting out in this pocket area. Okay, so it's cutting around here. So that line doesn't go away and that line. So I've just been able to establish this connection right here. Okay. Now, we're not done yet. When it cuts the pocket and everything, it can't cut in here. Now, this vector, this copy that I just drug over is for the pocket only. So what's not in the pocket? The tree, right? The tree is not part of the pocket, the upper part of the tree at least. It's outside. That's profile. So I need to make the pocket vector. So this can go away. Okay. Same here. Follow outside the blue line. Follow outside the blue line, right? So that's going to be all the pocket area. And here, again, anything outside the blue line. If it's inside the blue line, connect to it. That kind of thing, right? So the pocket cut is happening here. So right here, that is the pocket, right? It's not cutting right here inside the tree. It's cutting around the tree. Coming over here, same thing. If it's not in the pocket, goes away. Okay. So none of this matters. None of this stuff matters. All this stuff up here is not part of that little recess. That little recess and everything. Okay. So, this is what matters. This is what matters. Okay. None of this out here matters. None of this. None of this. This does. This, that, and that. That's my pocket vector. All of this stuff up here, trash. Or it, well, not trash, but it doesn't belong. Whoops. It doesn't, come on now. Okay, this is the pocket vector. Now the most important, oh, hold on a second. We got right here. We don't want to cut in the tree. Don't want to cut in the tree. So that goes away. Okay. Now the important thing here when it's pocketing here is, does my 1/16 of an inch end mill fit in these areas and stuff? And if I did my offset correctly, or if I have that 1/16 of an inch offset, and again, right here, very important, pay attention to what we're doing. We're cutting around the tree, not in the tree. So if my 1/16 of an inch end mill fits in there, then I've done okay. I've done my job. I've got the offset created exactly right. But this is the pocket vector. The profile cut vector, now that I have the pocket vector, okay, this other copy I can use for the profile cut vector. So these two go hand in hand with each other. All right. And for right now, I'm going to take this vector and G for group it together. And here, I know what doesn't belong in here for my profile cutout, that panel cutout. Don't need any of this stuff because it's all right here, right? Don't need any of this stuff in here. Okay, so I can go in and get rid of all that. My lower line is what I need to keep. So all this stuff up here can go away, right? So my lower line is what I need to keep. So with my scissors, I can get rid of this all the way up to that blue line. It's got to connect. That blue line has to connect to it's got to go around the tree. The tree stays. The tree stays. Now I would prefer to have a little bit more meat on the tree. So before I do that little connection to the trees here, I'm actually going to offset them outward. My line technically would be a 30-second out. 03125. 03125. Okay. Yes. All right. So with my scissors, oh, hold on. I got to extend this line first. Extend this to here. Take the scissors and cut it here and there. So that line goes around. It goes around. This is trash. You can get rid of that. All this is trash right here. Oh, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. I accidentally deleted that line. That's my good line. This can get deleted. Okay. So this comes around. This is the profile cutout. Profile cutout. We'll get rid of that. We'll delete that in a minute. It comes around and it should connect here. So this extend to here. If it doesn't want to extend it down to where it will extend to, and then take your scissors and trim. This inside vector of the tree is not part of the profile cutout, so it can go away. This is the profile cutout. Cutting around to here and then down, so everything up can go away. Take your scissors, connect it. That's trash. It can go away. Come down and connect. That's trash. So that connects all the way around. Come up here. This needs to extend. Almost there. This is not that bad of a fix. Cut. This is trash. The inside of the trees will end up deleting after we connect. This is our line right here. Oh, don't do that. We're connected on the wrong end here. This connects there. And then on here, this connects here. This is the profile cutout. So we don't need this inside stuff. Profile cutout, only the outside stuff. All right, so that comes around the tree, comes down. Now, all of this stuff was here, not part of the pocket. So it needs, I don't think you're going to be able to get a 1/16 of an inch bit in some of those areas. So that goes all the way around. This inside, let me get rid of. All right, so just so you know what's happening here, delete that. Delete that. It's only the profile cutout, right? Only going around the edge. So it's coming in here and it's Again, it's not going to be able to fit in some of these areas, but these inside lines don't matter. So it's cutting around. So that's our profile cutout. So this is trash. So this is our profile cutout. So if I come in here, what we should have when we put these two back together, and when I put these together, I'll grab it right here on this little notch out, and I'll drag it over and snap it into place where it belongs here. Give me a second to get up close. I don't think that's that notch out. I think, which one? It is that notch out, but let me find a better connection point. One of these. Don't let it confuse you what you're seeing here. One is a pocket, one is the profile cutout. Okay, so let's recalculate these toolpaths. This is the profile cutout. Calculate, reset the preview, preview the visible toolpath. Oh, I'm missing a line. Hold on. This is very important. Putting this back over here real quick. Join the vectors together. Make sure they're joined before you start laying other vectors on top and everything, so there's absolutely no confusion of what's going on. And again, I've got an open vector here, but if we look at the node editing, you look for the green node. The green and black node should come together. If they do, pull the green node to the side. You'll see there's another line here. So that's called an overlap, right? So I'm going to hit undo on that. And I'm going to just grab the, let me zoom into this. Pull this up just a little bit. And that span, I'm just going to delete that span because it already, oh, Lord have mercy. That span needs to come down here and connect down here with this one. Okay, one more time. Join that vector. This is trash. Okay, so before I start overlaying everything, I want to make sure I have a closed vector, right? So I have a closed vector and I've got 3 open, what I just selected. So the open vectors are these little lines right here, okay? And that line is not, part of anything. Let's look at the other open vectors, and let's right click and select text, open vectors, select vectors, open vectors. And this, again, these little lines, right? So there's 2 of them. We just want to delete those. This is the profile. This is the pocket. So let's get the pocket back into play. Okay. Profile cut. This guy. Calculate. Reset the preview. Pocket cut. Calculate. There's 5 open vectors on that one. It's going to ignore those 5 open vectors, but again, I'm moving it off to the side. I want to know what they are before. I don't want to be on top of other things. So ungroup. Lord of mercy. Right click, select all open vectors. Okay, so this is one open vector, and there's actually 5 of them because you can see the black dots. If I go to node editing, you'll see green points where those black dots are. Everywhere there's a green point, there's an open vector. That's the start of a line. So if I pull this up and to the side, you can see there's another one right behind it. Okay, so this whole thing, there's duplicates, and they don't close if they're duplicates and things. So I can come in and select this vector from here to here. And if I hit delete, does it go away? No, it's still there. That was a duplicate on top of itself. And this vector is all by itself too. So one continuous vector. Now I have another line here, but before I go, messing around, I want to pull on it, see if I see another line behind it. There is. And so how far does that extend? To what extent, where does that line start? Where does the overlap start and stop? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete this span, and then in regular view, I can usually see if there's a solid line behind it, and there's not now. So I should have, I've got one open. That means that it's not joined at my start point. So here's the start point. And what that means is, again, a little bit of an overlap there. This guy right here is causing me some problems. So I'm going to hit undo. I'm not going to delete it that way, but this vector right here, I'm just going to pull it down a little bit so I can expose that and delete that span. Now come back over here. It's still open, and it's not letting me join. So that means there's more to it than, there's an overlap all the way around. So if I pull, see, I'm pulling these nodes out, and you can see there's another line right below it. So let's put all that back. I'm going to, on this green start point right here, I'm going to cut the vector there. And I'm just going to pick a spot, and I'll go up here and cut the vector. And I want to see if I take this vector that I just cut, and let's get out of node editing for this. If I move it away, there's another one behind it, right? So that's trash. I can delete that. Now, if I click on this right here, it's another green. The green point has moved. It's now up here now. And if I pull this, you can see it's not connected, but there's no line behind it. That's good. So now the software should let me join that and close it, which it does. Good. Now we've corrected that. Now we can put it back. I'm going to grab it right at the top of the peak here, and I'm going to snap it to the top of the peak here. But first I'm going to hit G for join. Join that, or group, not join. And I'm going to snap it into place right there. All right, one more time. Pocket cut, calculate. You son of a gun. What is still open on you? Okay. It is saying that there's still an open vector. One more time. Ungroup. Let me look here. Right click, select all open. Okay. Just literally 2 straight lines. So that one, delete. That one, delete. Lord have mercy. All that for that. Okay. Put it back. G for group. Turns kind of an aqua color when it snaps. All right, one more time, ladies and gentlemen. Calculate. Woo. All right, reset the preview. Preview the visible toolpaths. Okay. Get rid of the trash here. A little bit of debris here. Now, some areas, the bit could only fit in certain areas and couldn't get in the others. We Dremel that. We sand it. We clean it. We do whatever we got to do. But now we have that layer. So that's that third layer. So now we have our back mountain layer. We have our mid-range layer. And then we have this layer, which is the pocketed area and the profile cutout on that lower part of that range. And we continue this process. I think you get the point. I think I beat a horse to death with this. But you continue this process all the way through until it's done. Okay? All right. Ladies and gentlemen, late night. It's 11 o'clock at night. People got, they want to, do things tomorrow, church, all that wonderful stuff. And they want to get some rest. So I believe you got the idea. I believe you have the gist of it. Work it in layers. Work it one layer at a time. We're stacking. Figure out what your stack is. Figure out what is going to be, in front of another and everything. What, matters and all. The other stacked examples are not like this. These are completely worked and done completely differently. With these stacked examples that I was showing you, it's all silhouettes, right? It's all vector tracing, but then you're pocket cutting or removing, profile cutting, whatever. You're removing areas to expose the layer behind it. And the layer behind it, you have multicolors and things like that. So the black is the far back layer in this situation. The light tan is the layer right before that. The dark brown is the layer before that. And then the real dark brown is the layer in front of that. And we're literally cutting out these pocket areas and all to expose the layer behind it. To expose the layer behind that one and the layer behind that one to get to those colored layers to really create that stack design. It's a completely different thing than what we did tonight. So there's all kinds of forms of stacked layers, stacked designs and stacked layers and everything. This one, they all take work. They all are, none of them, there's no shortcuts on any of them. But this one, we're literally building a diorama, if you will, of dimension. Okay? This one exposes detail. Same silhouette, same outlines, but certain pockets, certain areas are getting milled away. When they're all together, you can see through it, and it creates kind of a three-dimensional design and everything. Same thing with, this here and stuff. So I think you have enough information to be dangerous. Keep going through this process. Here, we have the layers done, all the layers done all the way up to the, the deer. The only layers that are left on this are the deer, getting that, just the deer, getting it cut out. And this is the deer vector out here where we're connecting, we're literally connecting. This outside vector is the deer. This one all the way around. We're connecting around here. That's the deer, not this inside. And also imagine if you deleted this and you started connecting the ear together on this side and this side, and then connected this leg down to this side of the line. this over to this side of the line, so on and so forth, all the way around for the deer, and all of this other stuff would be gone. The deer is actually the easiest layer of all of them to create. But that deer, we have that one, it gets connected at the leg, it gets connected to that panel. It's still, all of it still connects to this panel, this back panel here, because the rocks, which are the next layer, they get glued on top of the rocks here. They get connected to this frame as well, but that layer gets connected with these rocks. And then your foreground layer, that goes on top of them all. So that gets connected to the frame. So it's going to take another hour or two to finish that, but I think we've got it. I think we've got enough information on the process. This wasn't a watch me for 6 hours complete a complete project. This was me, you know, promising to show you the process and the way of thinking. Take your design and break it up into those layers. Make copies of your design, and each copy kind of represents a layer. That way you can trim and cut vectors and borrow from whatever without destroying the one before it. That process, it's really going to, the first couple times, every time, it's going to tax your brain a little bit, right? But it sure does make you a good designer. When you have to deconstruct vectors and rebuild them to create what you're trying to get out of that image, man, oh man, does that make you good at knowing how to identify where to cut and what to connect. And when it comes to regular project, regular V-carves, and you have open vectors or you'd have to do node editing, you become so much more proficient at those type of projects because of what you've learned, or what you've learned by practicing deconstruction and rebuild of layers and things like that. It really, it's an exercise, and it's a good one. Somebody should try it at least once every time. If you don't want to try it and you just want to carve cool things, Etsy, stack layer projects. I gave you those two, channels and all to check out. At the front of the video, you can see their channel name. Awesome stuff. All right, everybody. I hope you got something out of tonight. And, you're picking up what I'm putting down. But it's a lot. It's really a lot to absorb. But also, it's just a lot of node editing and, trying to visualize where your line goes and stuff. Now, if any of you like freehand drawing and stuff like that, the freehand tool, like, for instance, if you're trying to visualize where something goes on another layer, not on the one you're trying to trim, you can just take your freehand tool and kind of visualize, like connecting a line to there, to see how it would go or what have you. Whatever helps you visualize. Now that layer, we would draw those lines on another layer so we can just turn them off, right? But we can turn it on every once in a while just to see, like, oh, I need to cut this line, or I need to edit this node, or I need to do that. You can kind of visualize where that mountain is heading, but do it on its own layer, your little drawings. That way they can get turned on and off, kind of thing. Okay? But the freehand tool helps you kind of like trace stuff out. And you can kind of say, okay, this connects here, that one connects to there. Turn that off and then start doing your trimming and connect what you just visualized. All right, everybody. Hope you got something out of it. Have a wonderful night. We'll see you next Friday, not next Friday, then the Friday after next. And we'll be Friday, not Saturday. Friday. See you.